Ubuntu's latest long-term support release has recently arrived. Should you use it? Here are my thoughts on Linux TV. Greetings, my most excellent friends, and welcome to the review of Ubuntu 20.04. My goodness, it's 2020 already and April, and we are looking at the latest release of Ubuntu. It just came out on April 23rd, so it's been a few weeks now, but we are going to take a look at all of the good, the bad, the new features, and everything that's in store. So let's take a look. The first thing is, it comes with the latest version of Gnome, 3.36, and it has all of the bells and whistles that come with Gnome's latest release, including a couple of revamped changes to their appearance. So like when we go to activities and we search for something, we notice now that the search results appear at the top, but also they've created borders and boxes to segment each different section, so that you can more clearly understand that this is related to the settings and these options are related to characters and any others that appear below it. So a nicer way to keep it organized. Nice and neat. I do like the neatness and the organization feature. So that's a nifty little bonus there. It also comes with the latest kernel release, which is the 5.4.0-29. And so that's going to have all of the latest updates for any recent hardware that you might be running, any recent graphics cards, and that will ensure that Ubuntu runs smoothly on your system, which is fantastic. Now, the first thing that you'll notice when you open this up is the new theme. This is the improved version of Yaru. And I must say personally, I think they did a phenomenal job with the appearance. You'll see new folder icons, and more even than the folders is you'll see the entire menu interface has been given kind of a revamped look. A nice flat theme has been created to accommodate the modern times, as well as the main accent color for a lot of apps has been changed to purple rather than the green or the blue that comes standard with the Gnome desktop. So if I was to install a piece of software over here, let's say I was going to install the GNU image manipulation program, and I click on install. One other thing you'll see is that the authentication dialog box has been slightly improved. They say it's now consistent across all different apps, which is a nice minor improvement. So you'll see the accent bar is now purple here. So the color scheme has been kind of universalized across all of these GNOME-based apps. The GTK theme has been improved, and it looks modern, it looks sleek. I personally am happy that they chose to stick with their orange and purple kind of African themes, the feel of it. I think that's awesome. On top of that, the lock screen is one of the new hot topic features of Ubuntu 20.04 with the Gnome 3.36 desktop. It's a nice subtle improvement that shows the clock once it's locked, and simply left-clicking anywhere in the screen will come up to this login prompt. So you can see your user, your image, and then you can type in your password and log in, and you're good to go. You also have the option of changing users over here in case you want to log out and log in as a different user. I really like the opaque Gaussian blurish look. I think that's slick, I think it's modern, and I like this a lot more than the previous version. Also up here in the system menu, they have changed the buttons that used to log you in, log you out, power on and power off the machine, and now they've changed them into menu entries or a list, more like a list structure. As to where before these were all symbols or buttons, now they're a list so you can more easily determine which option suspends, which powers off, logs out. Small benefit, but nicely done. One thing that did receive a large update is the settings. When we open up the settings, we find that they have changed the location and sorting of a lot of the menu options over here on the left. So many of these settings have been grouped together to be a little bit easier to recognize and to find. So that was a nice improvement. Things like Wi-Fi, network, and Bluetooth are all wireless types of communications settings, so they were grouped together. Things like the background appearance, the notifications, all about the visuals. And you can see as you go on down just how they've grouped them so that they tend to correlate more with each other, making it easier to determine, oh, this is the hardware section, because this is dealing with sound and power and displays and keyboards and printers and removable media, and then more of the user preferences, the universal access, the region and language, default applications, so the more of the personal settings down here. So that was a nice improvement. Another major feature they've added was the appearance section. They gave you the ability out of the box to choose the window colors. So right from the settings menu, you can choose their standard Yaru theme, their light Yaru theme, or their dark Yaru theme. Having these all in one place is very convenient and a nice way that you can slightly modify the appearance of the windows in order to meet your personal preferences. I normally am a dark themed user, but after looking at the standard choices that they've made with the Yaru colors, I'm really enjoying the appearance of all of this. I like what they've done. I like how they've made this look, so I might just keep it this way. And believe me, it takes a lot to convert a dark themed user to a light theme. And along with every release in Ubuntu as of late, you get the latest extensions that are included by default. The system tray extension, which allows you to have Dropbox or OBS or any other apps that require a system tray icon in order to access certain features. Those are available up here by default. For those of us desktop icon lovers, there is a desktop icons extension for Gnome that allows you to create new folders and icons and any other links that you want to create here, or shortcuts for on the desktop. Documents, you can save them right here, so you can work straight from the desktop and not need to go into a file manager and try to access them from here. And most prominently, Ubuntu has changed the dash in the activities overview into a dock, making it easier to open up applications right from the get-go, as well as switch applications on the fly. So for those of you who enjoy having your taskbar menu or your icons or your windows that are open right there for display, there you go. And if you want to auto hide them, you can do so in the settings. And in the appearance, you can choose to auto hide the dock, which will make it so that whenever any windows are hovering over them, that the dock will automatically disappear. And last but not least, you'll notice in previous releases there was an Amazon icon here in the dock that would, when clicked on, open up a browser window straight to everyone's favorite worldwide popular browser for stuff, for generic shopping. And it is now gone. And presumably this was because, well, people hated it. And it was, we can assume that Canonical was making some kind of revenue off of the links or the ad placement that was there. I don't know the specifics of that deal, but it was pretty obvious that many users were not happy with it and they got annoyed, and many of them just removed it the moment that they installed Ubuntu on their machine. And I guess either that contract ran dry or Canonical just realized that wasn't what the user's preference was, and they catered to the users. So either way, for those of us who enjoy this change, good job, Canonical. That is fantastic. Alright, so let's move on to the good here first. My thoughts after spending some time in this release, getting to know it, getting to see what's improved, and are things truly better? Can I suggest Ubuntu even more to users, or is there something deterring me or preventing me from saying this is their best release ever? So I have mixed feelings. Let's go with the good first. I think the theme looks awesome. As I mentioned earlier, I really like what they did. I think this is a nice modern blend of gradients and flat colors and theme elements, all of the options from the popover menus to their accent colors. I think they did a phenomenal job, and to the Yaru team who made this theme, good job on you. Another thing I really love are the extensions that Ubuntu includes out of the box, which are the desktop icons, their version of the dash to dock extension, and the system tray, which makes the Gnome desktop a lot more user-friendly than I think the vanilla Gnome or the default Gnome actually is. I think that these are features that many users aren't just accustomed to, but really kind of expect in a modern day desktop. So I'm really happy about that. One thing I was particularly curious about was the Snap apps. So these came out relatively a couple of years ago, and Canonical has been improving these containerized versions of open source applications ever since. And I was really wondering, because I know how big of a release this is, are the Snap apps going to be better? There were numerous problems when it was first released. The themes didn't match up, which bothered a lot of users aesthetically. There was a lot of performance issues. Apps were taking a lot longer to start than their native counterparts. So I was curious to see how things have improved. So I installed a few. One of them I know that is installed by default is the Gnome calculator, and it would take about 5 to 6 seconds in order to open up. So I'm curious to see if it will open up now quicker. Okay, so that was almost instantaneous. So let's take a look at some other apps. K-Mahjong, I know that that's a Snap app. So this one's taking significantly longer. Yeah, I'm not even sure if that one's opening up at all. Oh, look, that took all about 15 to 20, maybe 30 seconds to just open up this. So clearly this is not completely solved. Oh, there's the other one. Yeah, so I guess it just depends on the application, because because that's definitely unacceptable. You're not going to want to wait 30 seconds to open up something on a solid state drive. So that's a little bit of first-hand experience on the Snap apps, and I guess it's really just hit and miss about what's out there. One of the things I do like that they did with the Snap apps is they added this channel drop-down menu right here, where you can choose to install the stable release of an app, like in this case Kdenlive's latest release is 20.04. You can install a candidate if there's a release candidate out there. There's a beta release and a bleeding edge release, so you could technically get the master builds of an application if you wanted to test out a fix or a feature release that developers made as soon as it came out. You could install it straight from here. So I really like that feature. I think that that's great that they gave the user an option to install which version or which channel they would like to use, whether that be for end user purposes or developer testing purposes or bug reporting purposes. That's a very helpful feature for people looking to use different versions of that software. And the best part is those who don't want to use the Snap apps, even though it looks very heavily like most of the applications in here are going to be snaps now. And I've done some pretty extensive looking here. I've found that a lot of these apps are snaps. And you can tell just by the source being the snapcraft.io source, that means that it's in the Snap repository. If you don't, for some reason, want to use these snaps or want to install a different version, from the Software Center, it doesn't look like there's a lot that you can do. So for those that want to install a normal native app or one of their Debian packaged apps, you can still use a terminal and you can install something. So if I'm trying to install Inkscape here, I can still install the native app and it will download all of the components and the required dependencies and then install it. So there you go. And now when I run Inkscape, it loads right up and I'm ready to go with the native version of Inkscape. So whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for you, the good news is there are options. So now let me go into the bad. First thing is first. The header bars on GTK3 apps that were made for the Gnome 3 desktop, are very nice. I like this. I like that they have buttons right in the header bar. This is very Mac-esque. I like a lot of things about the Mac OS interface. And they've done a good job at unifying both the title bar and the menu bar all into one. The bad news is, for many apps out there that aren't GTK3 based or don't use the header bars, like let's say LibreOffice here. When you open it, you have the traditional title bar and the menu bar up here at the top. The problem is that these are still huge. Compared to previous releases of Ubuntu, this is massive. And some people can get used to it. I think this is a terrible waste of real estate. When you have some of these older apps and you have 3 lines, vertical lines of usage here. You have a top bar, you have the title bar, and you have the menu bar. And for many of us who do use our apps full screen, especially me in the media industry and graphic design, I like to have as much space dedicated and to my essential tools as possible. I mean, things like a lot of the menu buttons in GIMP and Inkscape. And so for these to be taking up a lot of the screen real estate, personally for me, is a huge bother. And I'm going to show you what I mean. We're going to go back in time a little bit here. I'm going to take you back to 2017, April. We are looking here at Ubuntu 17.04. This was the last release to include the Unity desktop. Oh, and unfortunately they gave bugs. Sure, I'll report some bugs. Even though this left support years ago, I'm still here to help and be a good Samaritan, right? So you can see this is the older version of files here from 17.04. The title bar was nice and thin, and it did have a menu bar of sorts that had buttons. Oh, look, another error. It had a menu sort with buttons, things to search, and a couple of buttons to sort and change the look of the icons in here. Now, that being said, even though this right here isn't exactly a space saver, the moment that you maximize the screen, you notice that the title bar merges with the top bar. And you can see the menu bar is now within the top bar itself. I thought this was a very remarkable, very revolutionary change that they made when they started with Unity. And they brought this whole part out, allowing you to make the most of the real estate on your screen vertically by merging these 2 bars together when they were maximized, similar to how Mac does it when you maximize their windows. I thought this was fantastic. I love maximizing the real estate on my screen and making way for the more useful things or the things that I use more often inside of programs. But now that's gone. That's gone the way of the dodo. And now we are stuck with this, which is another one of the things I absolutely hate about Gnome, which is also the top bar. I can't stand the placement of all of these. I think that I think putting the notifications inside of the clock is very unintuitive. And I think having it just a menu item here just to close or create new documents or something, it's pretty useless for most apps on a practical level. So from a design point of view, and this is just my opinion here, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I've kind of tolerated it throughout the years. And I know what everyone's going to say. You can add extensions and change the look and the layout of it. Yeah, I know. You're right. You would be absolutely right. The challenge is that for many users coming over from Windows or Mac, out of the box, this is going to seem like a really weird experience. And some people might like it, some might not. I'm not saying one way or another. I'm just saying I know I'm not alone in thinking this, but this whole design, including this activities button, which I have loathed ever since they created it. The word becomes ambiguous, and it leaves you unable to really think, okay, what is this? Like, you have to be taught what the activities is for, and rather than it just being something that you would intuitively pick up. You can see it visually, but just the word, when they have icons and text over here instead of text, I don't find that very aesthetic. That's just me personally. Another issue is searching for apps in Ubuntu software. Many of the times I tried to search for something, it took a long time, and sometimes it didn't even work at all. So even searching for things like photos, this is one thing I haven't searched for yet since installing 20.04. And you're noticing it's taking a long time. This will probably go on for minutes right now. So that's another negative thing, is searching for apps seems to take a lot longer the first time you search for them. The other complaint I have is that even though they've done a good job with the Snap apps at making sure that users who use a long-term support release are still going to get the latest and the greatest of their open source applications, the desktop itself is still struggling because there's no plans to update the Gnome desktop that I'm aware of as subsequent releases of Gnome become available. So 3.36 is what's on here, much like all of the long-term support releases, and it's going to stay that way for, as far as I'm aware, for the duration of this release. That can be a real problem when you have competing operating systems like Linux Mint. With each release that they have, it's still based on Ubuntu's latest long-term support release, but they do make updated releases to their desktop, Cinnamon, and with each release you get an updated version of that desktop. So if there is a bug in Gnome right now, you have to either upgrade to the future releases, in this case 20.10, or you have to wait for or you have to hope that your bug is a critical one, in which they'll try to work on it in this release, because you'll just be out of luck. And that's a huge problem, especially in this day and age where things are being developed and you know there's going to be some feature or some cool improvement in the Gnome desktop in future releases where you think, man, that's awesome, I want to be experiencing that. Oh, but wait, I don't want to have to update my whole system, or I don't want to have to reinstall everything or back up my personal data. Like, I just want to be able to update what I have. And that's the biggest pull between LTS users and non-LTS users, is that they want to enjoy the latest desktop updates. So that's a bit of a bummer that Canonical hasn't seemed to kind of found a way to address this. And I understand Canonical's reasons. It's a big, hefty thing to update the desktop. That's a very core part of the operating system nowadays. It would be a hefty task to try to implement that, but it still remains on my wish list. So, should you use it? My take? Yes, absolutely. Ubuntu is Linux for human beings, which means, yeah, for everyone. Developers and non-developers alike. You can get the latest versions of your favorite apps and know they will be updated even if you don't upgrade to future Ubuntu releases. Though I personally struggle with Gnome's design, I still recommend Ubuntu because of its flavors offered. Different desktops placed solidly on Ubuntu's base system. So if you're like me and not a huge fan of Gnome, there are still plenty of choices within the Ubuntu ecosystem. Add on top of that the greatest support community, reliability, and ease of use. I can personally say Ubuntu 20.04 would be a most excellent choice. Take care, stay free, and subscribe for more on Linux TV.